Richtung David, Shamreini, Eir, Tzatzim Siba. אמרת לאדינוי, אדינוי אותו טובו סיבדו לכו, כדי שמשל באורץ אימו, ואדירי כוכב ציבור, עיר בו עצבי סונח אלמורו, על הספיסקי בינו, על מלס אשמיס מצבוסי, אדינוי מנוס חיר כבלקי סייעתו תמתולי, חבו למנוף תנולי בני ממתנח לא שפולוי, ארוחס אדינוי אשר יוצוני, אף לא יבסיסוני כל יסוי, שיביסי אדינוי לנגדי סומי, כי מימיני בלמי, לכן סומך לי, ביביול לא כבדי, אף סורי איש כן לא בטח, כי לססב נפשי לשאל, תיתן חסידך עוד ירש שוחס, תדעני רחיים סב אסמוכי, סספונך נעימויס במלך נצח. מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנו דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינעלני, נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך בגץ המוות לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך אמן נחמוני, תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד צורריי, ישנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה, אך טוב החסד ודפוני כל ימי חיי, ישבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. I will ask Michael, the oldest grandson, to come and lead us with the English paragraph of Psalm 23.
The Song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You've appointed my head with oil, and my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days.
We are now going to hear from the daughters about the great father.
Thank you. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us on this day. It's not easy in modern day time, so we really, really appreciate that. My dad was born on April 24th, 1936, in suburb of Moscow to my grandparents, Chaim and Ethel. My grandpa was history teacher, and my grandma was a geography teacher. My grandparents, my dad's parents, were originally from Ulanova and Berkowitz and moved to Moscow so my grandpa Chaim could study at the Red Academy to become a military officer and later a teacher. When Dad was born, he developed a blood infection, which was miraculously treated by blood transfusions with blood collected exclusively from his parents. When the World War II started, Dad was 5 years old. His father was enlisted in the Red Army the second day of the war. A few months later, his mom and he evacuated to Siberia. Upon end of the war, the family reunited and settled on the outskirts of Moscow, and his younger brother, Pavel, was born in 1945. Here are some excerpts from his brother, my dad's brother, Pavel, when he was trying to write some memoirs and memories for the future generations. So this is from his standpoint of view. What I remember is that my brother Aron was very good, if not the best, student in the school and a very good chess player, to the great satisfaction of his parents. Come to think about this, he was good in sketching, drawing, writing, poetry, and he did all of that on a very high, if not the professional level. From a very young age, he demonstrated impressive technical capability and assembled a handheld radio somewhere in the 7th grade, which later defined his future direction in life. He definitely had a lot of talent in him, and at the same time was always extremely perceptive and sensitive to environment in relations, family, work, country, and the world. Shakespeare said about people like that, wear your heart on your sleeve. I think that extreme sensitivity, peculiarities to issues, and certain strangeness are all indicators of great talent. It does not necessarily mean that society or even family will recognize that as such. Not every talent has the luck, persistence, patience, and even common sense to sustain the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. I remember the surprise my parents reacted with when Aron's actions, when in one of the chess competitions he did not reach the position which he expected, and as a result ran away and hid in the attic. When he was found, he was all in tears and basically had a nervous breakdown. The same was for the rest of his life. Whenever he started anything, personal relations, technical projects, or struggle for human rights in Russia, it was always very emotional, apocalyptical, with a lot of pain for himself and the family. Common sense was never his strong point, maybe because he was a very uncommon man. That was his memory of him. Following Dad's service in the Red Army, my grandfather's service in the Red, my dad's service in the Red Army, where he was sent to Hungary to fight the counter-revolutionary uprising. He earned a master's degree in radio engineering while working and attending university at the same time. Dad started to work at ENIS, where he developed new technologies, earning numerous international patents and rewards for his work. But since he was Jewish, he was not allowed to travel abroad to present his inventions. The Russian engineer was sent instead. He was greatly respected by his colleagues for his innovative and technological mind. Due to his daily experiences with anti-Semitism, the reality and the inevitability of the Soviet communism, he started to develop a strong sense of Zionism. As far as I remember myself, he was always determined to move to Israel. His fight for human rights of Soviet Jews to return to their historical motherland was harsh and unyielding. Being arrested and beaten, losing job opportunities, family members being followed and interrogated by KGB officers were all part of life in the 80s. At the same time, we celebrated Jewish holidays by going to Moscow's synagogue and dancing there on Simchat Torah, having packed Passover seders at our apartment till wee hours of the morning. Hosting Jewish Sunday school at our apartment were also part of the same time period. After living in Israel for 8 years, which Mom absolutely loved, they moved to Cleveland to be together with the rest of the family. Dad followed politics and current events to the fault. Listening to the daily news and the weather report was the hallmark of his day till the very end. For the past year, he missed Mom terribly. And I hope his soul rises and finds peace next to hers. Dear family, when Dad was 5 years old in 1941 in Birulugu, a suburb of Moscow, the Germans were closing in on Moscow. Dad and his mom Ethel, my grandma, were on their own since his dad Chaim was summoned to join the forces against the Germans. At night, there were constant air raids, shelling and bombing around their building, which necessitated frequent trips to the bomb shelter. That continued for 5 months until Dad and his mom were ordered to evacuate to a town in Tomsk region in Siberia. German planes continued to attack trains, even if they were marked with Red Cross signs, or it was obvious that it was civilians trying to escape capture. The train that my 5-year-old dad and his mom were on was attacked twice, and they lost a few wagons with people. Doctors at the checkpoint said that Dad had a nervous breakdown, probably because of everything that was going on for the last few months.
Dad and his mom lived in Siberia for 3 years. While safe from active warfare in Siberia, they were not spared of the exhausting hunger and malnutrition. His entire life, he savored every crumb of bread and parcel of food as sacred, not allowing us to dispose of any leftovers. Because of these circumstances, kids had very little time to play and be kids. There was no time or opportunity to talk together with family. These hard times made Dad resilient and emotionally closed off. In my childhood, I missed Dad's hug and affection. It just wasn't never part of who he was. I later learned that in fact he had many feelings, but just didn't express them outwardly. One sweet memory from when I was around 5 years old, Dad came to visit me at my sleepaway camp back when we lived in Russia. Parents were only allowed to visit a couple times through the summer. He took me to a nice meadow with some trees and flowers. We were sitting on a blanket and he handed me beautifully packaged chocolate. The chocolate balls, similar to Ferrero Rocher chocolate, but better, were wrapped in gold metal paper and had the imprint of Mozart on it. He explained that Sofa, Mom's relative from Israel, sent those chocolates in the mail for us. I enjoyed his attention and our little outing very much. To this day, I remember this occasion. My father, all his life, hated communist USSR. He spent a lot of his time reading books and newspapers, always staying on top of current events. Ever since I remember, he always had that day's newspaper laying around next to him. Even as recently as this year, when my boys came to visit him and unknowingly ruffled his newspapers laying on the living room table, he reprimanded them. Dad spent a lot of energy and time fighting against USSR's anti-Zionist policies and attended protests with a sign on his neck saying, "Let us leave." The regime imprisoned some pro-Zionist activists, and my dad was taking a huge risk by attending those protests. Although Dad's intentions were good, it was hard on our family. He was often missed in the evenings and didn't have a big role in everyday family life, such as kids, our evening dinners, or weekend outings to cultural sites. Dad's contribution was more financial, which helped finance our family's biannual summer getaways to warm regions in the area, such as Palanga and Melotai in Lithuania. Hindsight, Dad was fighting the regime on behalf of his grandpa, Motiv, and his dad, Chaim, who both had pure ideologies and believed the regime and their false promises. During these days, Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, the Tzaddikim, a righteous person, are set to leave this earth. May your soul rise up quickly and find its peace. Love, Allah.
I am going to be short. I also want to say thank you everybody for coming because it means a lot. It is very, very hard. I do want to take opportunity to say thank you, Dad, for everything good. And it always comes philosophical, as my sisters were saying. I'm grateful for many, many things, and the fact that I have the best sisters in the world, I'm very, very grateful. It's always comes philosophical question. What is Mama is always saying? It's like you more worry what's going on in Honduras than what's going on in the family. And I don't know the answer to this question because it is important what's going on in the family and emotional life of the kids and wife. But if nobody would cares what's going on in Honduras, like right now, like the last 2 days, you only want to talk about me, what's going on in Belarus, like how you cannot leave. It's like so many workers came to the, and they told him leave. Why he's not leaving? I said, can we just come down and can we just get two teaspoons of don't know what is right, what is wrong. I am grateful for all the good things. The character, I mean, not the easiest one, but I am grateful for all the good things. I want just to just a couple of things. Dad was very, very smart because he had like 12, in Russian it's a patented, when you completely invent something new. And I remember every time Mom's eyes were lighting up when he was acknowledged and he would bring the document that this patent for the adventure and the engineer, whatever he was doing, she was so proud of him. And then when his poetry was published at his work, she was just so, so, so proud of him. And it's interesting, probably he enjoyed this also, but he never was like, he didn't show. I mean, he was workaholic, and obviously he wanted what the best for the family. So since it is Yom Kippur today, I do want to ask forgiveness for maybe not spending enough time, not listening, because there is never enough time because you have to work, you have to do zillions of things. So I'm sorry if we didn't give enough time and just kind of whatever the девочки finished like rice, I don't remember the right thing.
It was fascinating to listen to all three of you. Actually, I could relate to every word. First of all, I was born in Moscow, in the suburb of Moscow. My parents were also in Siberia during World War II. Almost every Russian Jew has the same story. And parents never show affection. I'm surprised that you're surprised about it. Russians never show affection. They only tell you when you're not doing well. If you're doing well, that's okay. That goes for without saying. Then I'm a little surprised that you're surprised. But what's most important, your father, Judaism was important to him. And he was fighting all his life for his Jewish identity and for going out to the land of his forefathers. Being a Jew in Israel, a free Jew, be able to practice as a Jew without you hated USSR, you hated communism because it was a terrible, terrible, terrible regime of evil people. And that's why they didn't allow any Jewish thing to be done, nothing Jewish. And that's why so many Jews don't know anything about the Jewish identity. And for your father and your grandfather, Judaism was very, very important. He was beaten for it, tortured for it, imprisoned for it, suffering for it. And that's the message. You know, I was wondering why your mother passed away before Rosh Hashanah and your father before Yom Kippur. Because they are holy people. Holy people is not somebody who prays a whole day. Holy people is somebody who is ready to be beaten for another Jew, be beaten up for his religion, for his beliefs. That giving your life for your Judaism, that's what holiness is all about. That my message to the grandchildren, my grandparents, Judaism was very, very, very important. And that's why he's entering heaven, Erev Yom Kippur, the earliest day in the Jewish calendar. It's and Yom Kippur is a day of forgiveness. Usually when a person goes to heaven, he's being judged. Erev Yom Kippur is a day that the courts, so to speak, in heaven are closed. And he's welcomed and embraced by God. And why he was embraced by God? Because he embraced his Judaism. He was ready to suffer. You know, in Russia, nobody had a bar mitzvah. Nobody had a Jewish event. Your bris was when you first time you were beaten up as a Jew. Your bar mitzvah was the second time when you were beaten up as a Jew. That's how you build your Jewish identity. The first came to you, Jid, that was being Jewish. By aiding you, the anti-Semitism that was there, that's what made the Jewish people strong. And you and your parents worked so hard. I heard your father was a friend of Julie Edelstein, and he heard from her stories about, I was in the great synagogue in Moscow with Getche. It was an old chassid, and they used to daven on Yom Kippur. And when it came, the last line Yom Kippur, by the end of the service, on the Ile, we say next year in Jerusalem, that this line they had to say very quietly, because if they will say aloud, that means they are Zionists. They have to be arrested. They used to say together like a secret. They used to stay around them and say quietly, L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. We are so lucky we can be Jewish here. We better embrace it. to live up to your grandparents' memory, I beg from you, make sure you strengthen your Jewish identity. And now please rise for the Kel Maleh Rachamim prayer. El Maleh Rachamim, שוכם המרומים, אמצעי מנוחה נכונה וכנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת אהרון בן חיים שהלך לעולמו, בעבור שאנחנו מתפללים בעד הזכרת נשמתו בגני עדן תהי מנוחתו. לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור חיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. God full of compassion who dwells and I, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and pure one, pure who shine as the brightening of the firmament, into the soul of Aron ben Chaim, son of Chaim, who has gone to his world, and for whose memory we pray. May his repose be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring him under the cover of God's wing and bind his soul in the band of life. May the Lord be his heritage, and may he repose on his resting place in peace, and let us respond, Amen. Now we're going to lower the casket and then cover it. It's a big mitzvah to help to cover the casket. can work from both sides. Cast off friends who would like to share. Step forward at this time as well. Everybody friends who would like to share, let's come up. Make sure that the center the block. Try to get all the cement from Thank you. Concentrate on the end. Try to concentrate on the end. Concentrate on the end. Which suburb you found was done? Which suburb you must
Then it's
Rotterdam. Rotterdam. Yeah, but yeah, now it's nice. I asked you what you bought. Concentrate on the end.
but at the institute.
Yeah. So you need to cover the cement.
Oh, okay.
Going for the walking. Yeah. Jacob. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. We are going now to recite the Kaddish. Please come closer a little bit. The moment we recite the Kaddish, and this will complete the service. יהי שמי רבה וגורם לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתמונע ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי וקודשה בריחו. לעילה מטוב ברכתה ושירתה ושלחתה ונתמתה אמירן ועלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה וישמעיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. And the more as we go all you have to put it in the comfort for the Lord, because she will start now and live by the other day. After the other day, this is only great start to the officers to your cars. Friends, this will conclude the Zoom service. We thank you all for your attendance. Even though you could not be here in person, it is appreciated by the family.